Picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Hello and welcome back. It is week 2, the second week on the Comlock stun gun and tiny Razor Crest, and we are waiting. Basically, I'm waiting for it to warm up a little bit because it's gotten to where the mornings are quite chilly, and there's no sense trying to do any outdoor spray painting when it's that chilly out. So, I'm taking the opportunity to clean the table off. Hopefully, it looks a little cleaner than the last time you saw it. I gave it a vigorous cleaning, although I'll have to admit, lately the definition of vigorous has been ratcheted down. I just get more tired quickly, more tired more easily, more quickly. But I had big fun with the 3D printer over the weekend, and since so many people are interested in my holy hand grenade, I thought I'd give it a proper stand. Make sure you can see it over there, yes. And this was something that I had picked up online, free download over Halloween. This was a thing. It's a thing, Addams Family thing, STL file. But I was trying out the new printer with the new aqua resin, and this is gorgeous. I just can't stop staring at it. You don't see any build lines in it or any gradations or steps in that at all. It's just beautiful. It's a little small. I realize this is about 85% of the human hand size. Were I to print anymore, I would bump up the size 115% type of thing. But while I was at it, I printed 2 of them, left and right. But yeah, I'm just enamored with this new printer, and I found a setting on one of the forums for the printer that more than doubled the print speed, so things don't take forever anymore like they used to. So this kind of quality at that kind of speed, 3D printing has come a long way in just the year since I've had the other printer. But there is the holy hand grenade with its holy hand grenade stand. So as I said, I'm kind of waiting. I am going to be painting this and this in a silver paint, and that in a beige, what I call moon beige, alpha beige, and then we'll start doing the accents on this. I had a request to kind of discuss what I did with this last week, and I can't really tell you anything. I followed the instructions and I put it together. It's ridiculously easy to do. It went together like a charm. And people have asked about the stickers. The problem with stickers in something this small is you can't get the stickers to go down evenly over all of like these little raised panels and stuff. It just won't follow the dimensions like you would get on a decal. And to tell you the truth, I'm not even going to use decals. I think what I'm going to do is, after this is painted with the silver and all the molotovs, I might just go in and take some indications and hand paint those little bits of scratched off stripes on it, since it doesn't have to be. I mean, if you're going to do an accurate model of the Razor Crest, you could just do a pile of sand with some silver spray paint on it and say, this is what it looked like post explosion. But it's nice. I hate using the phrase "it is what it is" because I think that's a cop out. Things are not what they are. They're what you'll. Things are not. My answer to "it is what it is no. It is what you will allow it to be. It is what you will settle for, and I don't want to settle for what this looks like just out of the box. I am going to take a wash and do a wash over some of these panel lines after the silver has gone down, and then I might pick out a plate or here or two with the Molotov to get the really bright chrome, but I'm not going to chrome the entire thing. I think once you chrome all of it, then it all becomes the same finish, and it all becomes cheap and somehow. It has more dimension if you just chrome little bits of it and have some variations in the color. So I need to pick up a silver. I need to pick up a beige, and then everything else is just accent paints. I've got that stuff here. Hey, a lesson I've learned recently is to check your stock before you run out and buy something. I was all prepared to run out and buy some more paint for the beige and the silver, and I should have just checked my stock first, because I've got it. I just have to keep better control over what I got. So I found a can of Tamiya, and this is the gloss aluminum, and I think this was left over from the Jupiter 2. But it's a great color, and but it was been in the closet for a while, so I shook it vigorously, and I sat it in a bowl of hot water for a couple of minutes to warm up, because that closet is kind of cold, and I want to heat up the paint, and I want to shake it up very well, particularly because it's a metallic, but you should do that anyway. And I went out and I put a gloss, or a coating on the tiny Razor Crest, and I really like that. It went on nice and smooth, like it was made for it. It's Tamiya paint going on a Tamiya model. No, I'm sorry, that's wrong. It's Tamiya paint going on a Bandai model. But look at that nice smooth finish. Based on that, I am prepared to put this on the stun gun of the set here. So before this paint has had, I'm going to warm it up again, rewarm it. But I'm going to take this outside for the scant few seconds that it's going to take to paint it, and hang it outside, and give this a good painting. Okay, so both the Comlock and the stun gun have their first coat, or in the stun gun's case, 2 coats, and it looks really good. So I'm kind of happy with that. I may do a little bit of really high grain sandpaper sanding on it, and then buff it up and see if it needs anything more. But I think I'm very happy with where that is. The beige is one of those primer and top coats in one, so you don't want to lay that stuff on too thick. I'm going to let that sit, maybe sand it up a little bit, and then get it another coat after that, to a light coat on top of that before we start painting the details. The Razor Crest looks really good with that silver on it, and I think what we're going to do is let this dry for just a little bit longer. I'm not in a rush. But then I'm going to start putting washes and stuff over that. I need to paint in the canopy. Helps if it's in camera. Paint in the canopy, and then put some washes over top of that, and pull out those decals, or the stickers, and maybe trace some of that off onto the hull, so that I can get ready to do some sort of small painted indication of the stripes. But I think most of what's going to happen on this is just going to be the black wash, and then some maybe some scorching here around the back of the engines, some minor weathering. Okay, so the Comlock has got a second coat of the ivory on it, the beige. The stun gun has still that same number of coats. I haven't touched that, other than to take the handle grip out and paint that black, which is in the other room. And the big trouble now is to remember, that's rattle can stuff. That needs to live on its own without any interference, probably the rest of the day. I'll come back, and the longer you let that live without bothering it, the stronger it'll get, and the more bulletproof, hopefully, the finish will be. It's got a gloss finish on it now. I may end up knocking that back, but the gloss is actually going to work when it comes time to put those big honking decals on the side. The only decals I'm really going to use, well, no, there's that one big chart-looking thing on the front, and then there's, of course, the Koenig ID badge on the side, and those need a gloss surface anyway, so the gloss paint will do that, and then perhaps a semi-gloss to finish it off, over to seal in the decal and all that. But letting that live without me touching it for the rest of the day. And what I could do now is I could start playing with the Razor Crest, because it's it's had plenty of time to dry, and that's the Tamiya rattle can, which dries a lot quicker than the big was that Krylon? I think it was Krylon. the primer paint in one. So let's pull this one out and start playing with it. Okay, rather than rely on those stickers, I just did a little bit of abstract painting on the side to kind of indicate those stripes. And now I'm going to grab the old Vallejo metallic color jet exhaust, and I'm going to do a little bit of jet exhaust work on these, just the back cones here, and that will be pretty much the only areas that were covered by decals in the original kit. So I'm just dabbing this on, and then I'm gonna wipe it off with the Q-tip now, because this is metallic paint. The water-based acrylics, well, I don't know that all acrylics are water-based. I will say these ones. These paints have a tendency to bead up on that, and they don't sink in, which is fine. I'm going to get the airbrush out and spray some black scorching around these exhausts. I'm just wiping this off now with the tiny brush, and you know the routine. And then it'll be time to take the black. I'll mix up a black and brown, but mostly black wash, and just go over top of the panel lines and kind of accentuate some of that. So that's looking pretty good. Let me see, get a towel, wipe this off. And dab it off of the wings there. Okay. Now this is so tiny that you got to make sure your weathering is also in scale. You don't want to have a line, a big old fat scorch mark that would be, you know, on the full-size ship would be the whole length of it. So you gotta make sure your streaks and your hit marks are kind of in scale as well. So let me move some stuff around, and actually, you know what, I probably want to do the wash before I do that airbrushing, because I don't want to wash over top of that. So I'm looking on the shelf in front of me, reaching for the game black wash. Let me get this camera out of the way. Okay, just a quick coating with the wash, and you can already see the difference. Just watering it down and letting it lay inside there and really stay inside those deep crevices, and then just take a big old shop rag, just do a quick wipe, again wiping in the direction of travel. You wouldn't want to wipe it this way, but you can see the underside of the difference, what it makes between the top and the bottom. So like I said, all I'm doing is taking some of this game wash and moistening it down, dipping the brush in some water, and just laying it on here, letting it find the crevices it wants to stay in. And then, you know, by the time you come back around, it's ready to be wiped off. You don't want to leave it in here forever, but you also don't want to put it down and then wipe it right off. You have to give it a chance to find a home. Now I'll probably end up using the airbrush to spritz inside those intakes, just to, you know, that's a case where you may want to use the tip of the Q-tip there, but just wiping straight back. Let's see, I've wiped too much off of there. I needed to let that, either it wasn't thick enough. I might have diluted it too much, or I didn't leave it on long enough for it to really find those lines and lay in there and stay. And in some cases, it might take more than one pass. So lay that on there. You don't want to cake it on there. You can always do more passes. It's tough to over-weather it, but I mean, you can always put another. You can always go over it again if you aren't getting enough on your first pass. And like I said, it's metallic, so it's going to wipe cleaner than if it were a flat paint. If this were a flat paint and you put the weathering over it, it would just suck right into it. Just dabbing it off of there. And you'll find that once you have put a coat on here and you put the second one on, it actually sticks. The second coat will stick better because it's got a tooth to hang on to from the first coat. But you can see it's subtle, but you can see what the goal is. And then anything that you want to be a nice big obvious streak, you can either hand paint in with the black, the flat black Tamiya, or you can airbrush in. At this point, I'm only putting washes on, and these are very subtle lines, only meant really to pick up the plating lines. Righty, I just took some of the Demon Molotov and on a tiny brush and touched it here and there to various spots, and maybe you can see how it picks up the light. It's just enough to give an indication of a highlight. I'm not trying to make this look completely chrome like an old Republic ship that you would see in the first trilogy, the prequel trilogy series, but here, maybe you can, if it catches the light just right, you can see it. So the last thing to do really at this point is to do the black scorching on the engines, and we will be finished with this little guy. Morning folks, it's another frantic day here at Happy Acres, and it's Tuesday. So much stuff going on today, as a matter of fact, that I did the unthinkable. I actually got up early. What's the fun of being retired if you find yourself getting up early? Good heavens. So, first things first, finished the tiny Razor Crest. You may see some little details I picked out here with the Molotov. This morning I put the gloss clear over the canopy, because that was one thing that was bugging me, was that black canopy that was flat. Didn't like that, so I glossed over that. So, not to gloss over the finishing of the Razor Crest, but the Razor Crest is finished. The tiny Razor Crest. Continuing work on the stun gun and Comlock. Now the stun gun yesterday I painted these black accents, flat black on these to give a nice little bit of contrast. All of these raised details will get vinyl. These get colored vinyl, these get black vinyl. There's a black stripe and a black L there. Now I do need to take the second season. I am doing the second season version of the gun, so that gets the smaller of the two. There are two different sizes of these side buttons. One's much fatter than the other. I'm using these thinner ones. I think it's just a nicer low profile. So I need those pieces. I need the rest of the barrels that go in the front. Those might need to be sanded down a little bit. These are all pieces that still have the chrome finish to them. And let's see what else. Oh, I have to decide which. I have decided which trigger I'm using. So I'm using the lower profile trigger, the second season the second season trigger. So I need to also put the decal on here so that I can pop that whole thing in there. So I need the second season decal to go on that. But these I can go ahead and put right in place. And I am just pushing them into place. I am not gluing them in case I get a wild hair one day and I want to change those out. So that's them. I can go ahead and pull the tape off of the one barrel that I had the bulb in, and I think I need to touch around that front with the Molotov to brighten that back up. But I can sand these down and push them into place, so I think I'm going to do that next. Also, I have plotted colored vinyl bits to go over the buttons, so I don't have to paint those. And these are the black details that will go down, so I don't have to paint those. So we'll do that, and then we'll move on to the Comlock. Okay, welcome back. Sorry about the noise, but it's been busy lately. What can I say? So now I've got the barrels glued in. Now I did have to sand down the chrome plating off of them to fit into the holes, because I didn't want, if I jammed them in there too tight, it was going to crack open this big old joint that I have going down through here. So I'd rather not do that. I'd rather sand down the barrels, slide them in, and then I can touch up the chrome with the Molotov. And what I'm going to do now is put the black shapes over here, and then the black accents that go on each side. And we're going to start with these stripes. If I can pull one off of the sheet here. Yeah, rather than using the decals. And it also saves me from having to put a clear coat over any decals. I'm just looking at the instructions, looking at the son of a guns themselves to see how far down that stripe needs to be, and it looks like right about, careful, don't want to stick it down prematurely, looks like right about there. Nice and straight. Now there's one thing I can't do, is you can't push these around like you can with decals. You kind of have to be pretty close to the mark when you are putting them down the first time. I mean, you can lift them and reposition them a bit, but you know, if you can get it down on the first go, your adhesive will stick better, plus you don't run the risk of too many little pin pricks in your finish. So this one is trickier because it get my example out here, the box top here. I've seen them all over the place in various replicas and stuff, but I'm going to take a happy medium here and say midway on that shape and midway on the button, so right about there. Okay, right about there. Slide out the knife, pop her down, just like that. Now we're going to put the black rectangles on. Again, sorry about the noise. Black rectangle 1. So much neater and cleaner than painting, because I don't have to worry about overspray on my silver or masking or cleaning up the brush when I'm done, that sort of thing. I did have to spray the trigger and the grip, but the grip is not glued in, so you can remove that and spray that quite easily. And what's really strange, I've noticed, the horizontal buttons look smaller than the vertical buttons, but they're the same thing. It's the same size. It just looks bigger when it's vertical. Okay, now we have the colored ones, and I've cut colored vinyl for these as well. And we're going to start with the red one up top. Again, these are all the same size, so I know that they're going to fit. And yellow is next. And green is next. And what I'll do is I'll just finish out this side, and then I will switch off the camera, and you can presume I've done the same on the other side. And there's the green. And the blue. Now my blue is maybe a little brighter, darker. It's not quite as pastel-y as the blue on the box, but I think all of these are of the same value, so they will play well together. There you go. A fully decked out side. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, and then we'll be hopefully almost ready to install the kill switch. Okay, I'm switching gears over to the Comlock, and I want to start painting some of these shapes. These will be painted more so than decal. Painted more so than using the vinyl. So I'm isolating the shapes that are going to be white. I'm going to go ahead and I've got those masked off and perimeter masks. So I've got the white in the brush. I will go ahead and put some white paint down. Oh, there's one more here. This guy is white. So I need to perimeter mask that. And then we'll be ready to paint the white. Okay, we got a rare quiet spot today, so I figured I'd catch everybody up. I've already found, you'd be happy to know, the first use for this wonderful swatch book of gel samples that I've already mentioned earlier. I put in, I think, last week's video, yeah. There is, for some reason, a clear one. I guess it's a heat shield. It was in the first one in here in the book. No color at all, but it's a clear heat shield. So what I was able to do was to cut a piece of that, and I put it over top of the decal. When you make the kill stun switch, you are to put a decal on a piece of plastic, and then this button will slide over top of it. Well, it doesn't take a genius to figure out if you do that over top of a decal, you're eventually going to scratch up that decal. So what I did was take the first little bit of sample there, and I decaled it, and then I took some canopy glue and I glued that sample down over top of the decal. So now this is not sliding on the decal, this is sliding on that clear piece of film. So yes, already come in handy. But here we go, we have a finished stun gun. The Molotov, I swear you cannot tell the difference between the Molotov and the chromed parts. That part looks beautiful. And this is to be checked off the list. This is a done thing. And now I'm continuing on the Comlock, and what I've been doing is sectioning off these colored buttons. And I still have the vinyl masks down. Now what I'm taking off is the perimeter. Ooh, that still needs a little bit touch up there. But the next thing to do, of course the next big thing to do, I've got some green to paint there. This odd button has to be a weird color. I need to put some more red on that. I didn't want to overdose on red the first time, because if you put down too much red it gets runny, and red is one of those really intrusive colors that if you get a spot of it somewhere you don't want it to be, that's all you'll ever see. But the last thing to do is to paint these buttons, and I'm not going to go with a black on those buttons. These are black here, But what I'm going to do with these, so that it doesn't look quite so quite so toyish, is I'm going to use the rubber black, which is just almost a black, but not quite. And I think it'll make a good mix with the German gray frame at the top here. So a couple little spots to do. Before I take these masks off, I need to retouch that top corner. Okay, I've got the number buttons masked off and ready to paint. And I think last time I said I was going to use rubber black. I meant to say I was going to use NATO black. NATO black is the color I was going to use. Not quite really black, but a little bit darker than the German gray. It's not as blue as the rubber black. That's why I'm going to use the NATO black. So let me throw some of this in the brush and paint some buttons. Okay, now it's time to remove all of these masks. I've let everything sit for a good long while. What happens when you have a little bit of overspray? Let's see. I'm not worried about this paint being knocked around because it's a good hardy rattle can color. Let's see what happens when I try to clean off. Oh, look at that. Yep. See, it cleans right off. To me, that cleans. And I'm not really worried about the finish so much because this is all going to get sprayed again once the decals all go down. So let me grab a what happened to all my X-Acto knives? Here we go. Okay. Now let's continue to take these off. I thought that red one might be a bit of an issue. There we go. Cleaned it right off. See, I told you, red is a tricky color. Helps if you have a clean Q-tip. Why won't you come off? Okay, so I've just removed all the yellow masking, and I cannot tell a lie. I had to touch up a little bit of the paint colors where the masks weren't quite covering everything they should have, or they covered up too much in some cases. So let's clean all of this off. And I still have masks over the chrome parts because really the next step is putting down the decals. There's a chrome part that goes here, but I'm not putting that down yet, and I'm just gonna kind of tape over that when the time comes. But you can see how clean everything looks there, and that's got chrome on it, and that's got chrome on it. So the next step, what we'll do tomorrow, is to put the decals and then spray everything, and then put the numbers and the white numbers down, and then the black vinyl. The disc is black vinyl. There's a C that goes here. Some other little details that are in the black vinyl. But yeah, it's almost done. Okay, so I was getting ready to finish up today, and I had cleaned up and gotten everything more or less out of the picture, and I was struck by a realization, and that realization told me that I should go ahead and put these decals on the Comlock down tonight so that they can be curing overnight while I'm resting my weary head, and then tomorrow I'll be able to first thing put a coat of sealer over everything instead of waiting another day to do that. If I had waited till tomorrow to put the decals down, I would not be able to seal them until, you know, that shoots another day. So let's go ahead and get these put down. It's not Not going to be that difficult. We've got the big one here that goes, let me make sure I start up. That goes there. There's one that goes on the back side, which is this one, and of course the big honking one here. And the nice thing about this gloss paint is it's already got a nice surface underneath it, so I don't have to clear coat this. I'm ready to put the decals down on it now. So we're going to set that aside and get these 3 big decals on, and then we'll be ready to close up for the evening. Okay, the big decals are down. We narrowly averted an ugliness. This started to shatter right down in here, so I'm hoping it'll dry flat. And I lost this corner. I don't exactly know why. I might see if I can touch that up with a bit of paint later on, but that's the 3 big decals, back, side, and front. So we're going to lay this on its side like that. We're going to let it sit all night and dry. And then we should be finishing up the Comlock tomorrow. I'm eager to cut out and see how well they'll work. Put a gloss coat over all of this, and then I want to put the black vinyl down, which is some of these markings. And I'm going to try putting white vinyl down on those numbers for the keys. Hey folks, welcome back. It's Wednesday and it's another Mad House day today. We're going to finish up on this Comlock. Now this morning I have put a nice coat of the satin on it, and it looks beautiful. Now I have taken to, particularly in this cold weather or colder weather, to warming up the paints before I spray them. I basically take a little bowl of water, nuke it for a minute till it gets nice and warm, set the can down in it for a couple of minutes, let it warm up the stuff that's inside it, and then shake it for a good minute and a half. I don't know if it's if that's all working, whether it's all psychological, but ever since I started that, I've been getting some wonderful results out of the spray cans. So and they're not all brand new cans. So that's just something I'm going to make part of the regular procedure now. The last step on this really is to well, before I touch up the silver, the last step is to put the white lettering on the numbers, and I wanted to make sure that the heavy coats or the coats of the clear were not gumming up these switches, that they are still switching. The decals have been nicely flattened in, and that was something else that was on my mind, and the reason why I wanted to warm up the clear coat was I was remembering what it was doing to the spinner decals. They came out fine, but there was just a little bit of onion skinning on them, or alligator skinning on them, and I didn't like it. So I figured I'd heat up the clear coat, give it a good shake before I coated anything with it again. But this all looks good. Even the cracked decal, the cracked area down in here looks good. That's on nice and flat. There's no obvious spotting or staining on there. Last thing to do, put some numbers down, and then the black accent vinyl. So let's finish this up. So I've got the numbers on the buttons, and a common mistake a lot of people make, and you would be forgiven if you weren't that up on it, is that people would have a tendency to want to put the buttons in the center of the or the numbers in the center of the buttons, like an old telephone, when they are in fact in the lower right hand corner of each button. So all we're left with now are the black accents. I have touched up the silver with the Molotow paint. Tough to see any difference there because it is so good. And I'm going to let that dry a little bit. Let's go ahead and start with these guys. They just get pulled off of the sheet and laid down. Let me see, make it a toothpick here to help position. So nervous having the camera on me. Helps if I'm holding the X-Acto blade in my dominant hand. And these just fit down right inside the indentations. Push it in with a Q-tip, and then we'll do that for the other 4 that are left. Okay, so the last of the decals, the last of the vinyl is down. Numbers are there, the black accents are there, and there, and there. And these guys are in their slots. And there was nothing in the back except this little decal, so nothing to worry about there. The last bit I am doing is I am gluing the chosen picture in here. The chosen picture. I have also taken the last scrap of that clear film and I've put it inside the frame. I like it just a little bit better than that clear part because this is a little clearer than even that clear part. And then I'm going to glue this frame in. I'm not going to go through the hassle of making it swappable and all of that, because once it's on the shelf, really, how often am I going to get it down just to change the picture out? And again, no light in here. That wasn't the mission statement. So I'll glue this frame in like that, and we will be done. I just checked online and saw that Randy has got a wonderful lighting rig set up for the stun gun. I knew he would. Can't wait to try it out, something like that on a future build. But for right now, I think I'm very happy with how this has turned out. Greetings, everybody. It's Thursday. It's the gateway to the weekend, and I was at a crossroads. I have finished the Comlock. I just put this on this morning. I will open it up. I will turn it on, I will close it back up, and I will press the buttons. And nothing will happen because I had it on to begin with the first time. Now I will press the buttons.
All factors memory bank inapplicable. Human decision required. Insufficient data available under prevailing circumstances.
And that's the computer sound that I am going to be swapping that out. Now the sound is a little bit more muffled because I've got this in, but it shouldn't be a speaker. It should be the sound of the volume of a cell phone, if nothing else. That's the important one. So this is all done. I'm getting ready to put it on the shelf with the other. But I was thinking, I've got 2 days left. What do I do with the rest of my week? Well, luckily, I was at the modelers meeting last night at our local hobby shop, Hangar 18 in Cary. If you are in the area, I recommend it. But Brian, the owner, finally got in the Mandalorian kits. Finally got in the figure kits of the Mandalorian. So I'm going to spend today and tomorrow finishing up, because it's a Bandai kit. I mean, I don't mean to disparage Bandai kits, but they're pretty easy. They go pretty quickly. So I'm going to spend today and tomorrow finishing up the Mandalorian, and then it'll go nicely with the tiny Razor Crest, and I can put those side by side, and we'll have a nice cohesive themed finish for the week. So I'm going to put this aside so it doesn't get dirty. And, I really should make some sort of acrylic stand for that. That would be nice. Maybe one of those little placard things that I could clip this onto that would fit over the top. That would be nice. Something with that, and to hold up the stun gun to make a nice display. But I'm going to pull out the kit parts for the Mandalorian. And I think I'm going to paint it up. I'm not going to do the hyper, all of the Beskar steel armor on that. I'm not going to make it all shiny. What I am going to do is I'm going to take the Molotov in certain places wherever we have a silver again, not decals but stickers. I hate that. Wherever we have that, I am going to replace these bits. I'm just going to paint those in with the Molotov. But there's opportunities for paint here. There's opportunities for some posability, because one thing Bandai does know how to make, it's a good model figure / action figure. Okay, step one. I have opened up all the bags and taken all of the trees out and laid them out and checked them off against the helpful thing that Bandai does, which is put a diagram up of all your parts. And I've noticed quite a few parts that you won't be needing that they have X'd out. And I remember hearing a while back that since this kit shares a lot, or indeed the design of the Mandalorian shares a lot with Boba Fett, that they simply reshot some of their Boba Fett trees and then added the new parts to it, which makes all the sense in the world. It's good economical sense, but you do end up with some pieces with the extra that you won't be needing. But you know, you can use those for something else, I suppose. You know, plastic is the cheapest part of the model making industry. It's the tooling that costs the most, so they can burn off that much plastic and not miss a heartbeat. So oh, and these are the soft parts. These are obviously the joints, and we have the silvered armor, and looks like undergarments and things like that. So let's get started. It looks like you need to put the cape on fairly early and work around that. So that's a fun piece. You know, sometimes they would have done like they did on the Vader. They did it as a hard plastic, and I really would have preferred something like this. So good news on that. So let's get started building up the chest. I guess is the first part. It's the chest and waist gets built up first. After some fits and starts in lovely dinner, this is where we're going to leave Mando for tonight. We'll leave him with one leg to stand on. It's going together, you know, about what you expect for a Bandai kit. Very nice. Of course, it's made to be assembled with, you know, snapped together. But I'm going to pull some of this stuff apart and glue it after I've got everything together, and I can kind of look at it and see how it's going to work. You can't paint the rubbery parts that well, but you can paint the shells and things like that. So, and I'm really digging this cloth cape. It's just hanging just right. They figured out a good way to get a good drape on that. You see, you can bend up, and lots of mobility, lots of articulation, like you would expect on a Bandai kit. But like I said, it's going together quickly. I'll finish this up tomorrow, and then we'll talk about painting. Good morning, everybody. It's Friday. It's the last work day of the week, and we are going to be finishing up on the Mandalorian today. Seems to be easily enough. I brought his elder brother out, the original Boba Fett, the original Mandalorian, out to supervise the last bits of the building. As you remember, last time we left him legless, not Legolas, but legless. I've got him. He's up on 2 legs now, but he's still mostly armless. So we're going to do the arms next, and then we're going to break everything apart and start painting. Again, you can see there's still so many parts left, but that's because a lot of these parts will never be used. And once I have used all the parts, I will show you what is remaining on the sprues, so that you can get an idea how much redundancy there is between these two figures. But going together pretty easily. Typical Bandai, excellent engineering, so no surprises there. We're working up on the I just gave him a good belting this morning, all the stuff that goes on his belt, and now we are working on the right arm. And it looks like, I have to double check here, but it looks like you've got the choice of whether or not to use the one with the shoulder piece with the sigil on it or not. I'm thinking, no, you don't. You don't. I thought those were alternate ones. They're actually left and right halves. I thought they were an alternate version. So you get the clan of the cave bear. Now the clan of the big boogie monster that he fights off in season 1 to protect the child, and the armorer puts that signia on his shoulder. So we do get that. It looks like we also have the big old spear and the dark saber here as well. So that's going to be fun. And the big old, the original OG, the OG Boba Fett long gun with the tuning fork on the end of it, that everybody remembers from the animated special that was on the fabled Star Wars Holiday Special, which I have to tell you, from my this is how old I am. Back when I was in high school, when that thing aired on television, a friend of, it would be no surprise to you to know that I was in AV Club, and some friends and I, we actually recorded that onto half-inch tape. It may even have been 3/4-inch tape. I think it was half-inch tape. Reel of half-inch videotape, reel to reel. It was so old that the recorders didn't even have timers on them, and you had to go reel to reel. And so we were in the school at 8 o'clock that night, recording on the AV equipment. We had to do that from time to time. We had to if there was a special on one of the educational channels or something like that that was needed for a history class or whatnot, they would sometimes ask the members of the AV crew to come into the school after hours and record that for them so that they could use it later in class. Well, we decided to do our own recording that night and re-recorded the Star Wars Holiday Special in all its cheesy glory. And it was not looked upon happily that we did that, and we were, of course, would be watching it on our breaks. The next few days after it came out, we'd watch it on our breaks in school, and the AV instructor was kind about it for a while, but then he said, those tapes are pretty valuable. We didn't have the budget to keep a bunch of them around, so go ahead and wipe that and tape over it with something else. So we refused to do that. We smuggled it back and forth. We went so far as to re-record like 10 minutes of it onto another tape that we put in the machine, played that 10 minutes to verify to the instructor that yes, that's what it was, and then we marched that tape over to the bulk eraser so he could see us bulk erase that thing. And it was, I don't know, some John Kennedy speech. Instead, woe to the science or the history class that wanted to use that in the future, because they had a blank tape. And I think when I graduated, I ended up taking that tape home. So it's probably somewhere in a dusty bin. It's a first generation half-inch Sony reel-to-reel videotape of the whole Star Wars Holiday Special. But I remember in particular watching the animated bit. That was about the only thing on that show that was worth keeping. And luckily, if you have the Blu-ray of Empire in the big box set, it is there as a hidden feature. You can watch the animated bit. But this is the gun. This is the thing he smacks the big dinosaur with as he's going through the swamp. But I digress. Let's get back onto the right arm of the law here, and we'll get that put together. And then we'll go out to the left side. Okay. The nice thing about having the Boba Fett next to the Mando here is that you can see the differences in the parts and the pieces that the way they're needed. And here we have a difference, and you got to make sure you grab the right one. The gloves for the Mando the hands are different than the gloved hands for Boba, even though the Boba hands are provided in this kit. They're part of the redundant parts that you don't need. That's the definition of redundant. So if you are of a mind to, you could put those on there, but the Boba gloves have this padding on the back of it, and this is more of a hard finish with those little triangles on it that get the stickers. I'll probably end up just painting those on. But there you go. We've got both of the arms, and we are ready to attach them. Is there anything I can think of? No, I'm looking at the instructions, and we're ready to arm our Mandalorian. There you go. He's got his right side. He's got his side arms. He's got his left side arm and his right side arm. That's a nice looking little figure. It's getting there. I like the way that when they sit, they have weight to them. The way the sculpted, the way the design is, it looks like it's got mass, it's got bulk to it. So what is next? What is next is the backpack, which again is different than Boba's backpack, even though you do get a goodly amount of Boba's backpack as an option, simply because it's on this sprue, which I gotta tell you, we haven't used much of. Much of this sprue is redundant, but some of it is not, and that's why we get another copy of it. Okay, so Mando is done now. Here are the parts that are left over. The thing about these Bandai kits is they're made for swapping out parts, and they're made for, you know, different iterations of a character. So you kind of pick and choose which look you like the best on this. And I am going with holding the big rifle with the spear, and I probably need to move that down. It's a little tall in the setting. There you go. With the spear over his shoulder, without the rocket pack. The rocket pack only featured briefly in the series. It wasn't that big a deal. Plus, it's more of a defining characteristic of Boba Fett than it is of oh look, I've decapitated him, of the Mando. So I'm just going to leave, pop that neck back in, leave the backpack off of that. So there he is, holding his rifle, posed with the spear on his back. Now, I want to show you something interesting. Here are all the parts that are left over that you don't use. And these were all Boba Fett parts. This is the pellet. I mean, if it weren't for the fact that we don't have another set of the rubber joints, that make everything move, we could pretty much build another good chunk of Mandalorian here, another good chunk of Boba Fett. I don't understand why this whole tree, with the exception of just a couple of parts of the backpack, is all you needed. You needed this piece, you needed the back of it, and you needed these pieces over here. Other than that, this whole tree is redundant. I've got the base here. I need to put that together. You know, you have 2/3 of the face here. Or the helmet. You have the front cheeks there, and you have the dented version of the top. If you only had the sides, you could make another helmet. That would have been nice. Hands, and I understand why they did. This is all of the undergarment, but with the molded in pockets as opposed to the armor plates. But all of these parts are redundant. We have a couple of ball joints here are redundant. I have a tendency to think those rubber parts are shared among many model kits, and not necessarily just Mando. So they probably have one of those that's more or less a standard. And what I'm not seeing, here it is, I tossed it out, is this plate that goes in the base. Now, the bases are handy if you are having having your figure in an action pose where he's slightly off balance, and you need to reinforce that balance by having him on a wider base. That's where that comes in handy. But these guys stand so nicely by themselves that you really don't need them. They're nice to have, and sometimes they're nice to have for other kits that you want to gang them up and use a larger base on. But this is designed to go in the base in such a way that his foot kind of keys into it. That way you could have him do something more interesting with, you know, standing on one foot or something. Right? The Mandalorian looks a bit like the Scarecrow from Wizard of Oz, at the point where the wicked winged monkeys had torn him apart. And what I've done is I've basically broken this down to the major bits of construction. And while Mando certainly doesn't have the beat-up armor that Boba Fett is famous for, you want to put a little bit of weathering on this. So what I'm mostly concerned about at this point is going back in and gluing up some of these joints that are press fit now. That's the thing about the Bandai kits. They are so well engineered that you don't need to glue them, but I sleep better at night knowing my models are glued together. If it's not a part that's going to be taken apart for, play action, like, gluing the hands into the wrists, you don't want to do that, or any of the joints that might open up. Well, the joints that want to open up, particularly ones that are under stress, those are the ones you want to glue. The fronts and backs of things, and if it's holding up weight, you want to make sure those are good and secure. And I'm just putting some of this MEK down the side of the joint and letting the capillary action suck it into place. And then what I'd like to do is to do a light sanding, particularly over the joint, over the seam, and then a dry brush on the high spots of the fabric, and then a wash of black and brown gunk into the creases. Now it's a question of whether you want to do your wash first and then put your dry brushing over the top of it. I put my dry brushing on first because even the high spots and wear would end up getting gunk on them that way. So basically cleaning up the joints, and then just like, obviously things like the bottom of the shoes, that would get wear, that would get a lot more scuffing and wear than other parts of the costume, or the costume, his uniform, his sacred armor. So yeah, just going around buffing up some stuff, seeing like these hip pieces here. They're this lovely blue color, and I can see where maybe just on the leading edge of that, scuffing that up a little bit. Not so much that it makes it look like Boba Fett, but scuffing it up a little bit. And scratching the paint off just a tiny bit, just to age it just that much. I'm just having fun with the paints, doing the washes and then putting a dry brush over top of it. The combination of those two, plus the underlying plastic with no primer on it, means that the not only does the paint or the wash wipe off cleanly, but also the top coats will sit on there, and you don't have to cover the whole piece because it's still the color of the plastic. But basically all I'm doing is going in and throwing some accents. You can see how all of the recesses have got the black paint sitting in there, and now I'm just hitting the high spot. And all this is really doing is increasing the contrast between the brights and the darks on here. Here's an example of the shoulder armor. You can see where the wash has settled into the crack there, and I'm just going to do a highlight just on the very highest bit to kind of bring out the brightness of the top coat, because even though you've wiped off a lot of the wash, it does have has the tendency to tint the whole thing. So now I'm just trying to go back and bring out more of the silver. Gotta be careful to keep the paint off of the black part of the visor. And this is a way of mitigating some of that wash by going back over top of it. Now I think what I'm going to do is I may go back in and either try to repaint the black T-shape, or take a Q-tip or a toothpick, just moisten that, just wipe it, try to clean it. Yeah, that's enough. I can just wipe it off with wipe the overbrushed paint off of that. There you go. I cleaned that up. But it's very subtle. It should almost look like you haven't done anything at all, even though you are doing stuff. And now I think the next step, oh wait a minute, this butt piece, for some odd reason, I know it's because of the way it was molded, but this butt piece is supposed to be silver, and it is not. It was on the brown piece. They put a decal in for that, or a sticker in for that. So I'm just painting that part back in. Luckily, a lot of this is covered with the cape, so you don't, if you mess it up, it's not seen that much anyway. But there you go. Just a quick addition of some of the silver there. And oh, that was the other thing I wanted to do. I'll take a very thin brush, take some of this silver, and I just want to go ever so slightly on the front edge of these hip parts, just to put a little bit of scratched paint on there. A little bit of scratched paint there. Now there's some of these silver details, particularly on the belt, that have to be painted in, and I'm going to try this with the, I have a tendency to think I'm going to want to put the Molotov on that just to bring those out as a bright chrome, because I don't want to use the stickers for that. Yeah, I think I want to go in with a tiny brush in the Molotov and really bring those up. And there you go. So I started the week with, or started this project 2 weeks ago with this tiny Razor Crest, and I finished up this project this week with its owner, the Mandalorian. So let me go out and grab the two 1999 props, and we will give a nice family portrait. But the last thing I did, I'm trying to make these camera moves smooth, was to take the Molotov and just do a little bit of highlighting just on like the canisters there and the belt buckle, and just some things that I thought could use a little bit of chroming. There you go. If I can lift him up a little bit. This cape is probably the best and worst thing about this kit. It is neat that you get the flat of the fabric and you get the movement and all of that, but it really gets in the way of that the belt over the shoulder and of the spear, and it keeps you from putting the backpack on. But there he is. Nice. Okay, so let me go get the other two and we'll make a big family portrait. Okay, so there is your family portrait of the project for the last couple of weeks. Kind of both ends of the spectrum. You go from the clean, antiseptic world of 1999 to the grungy, used, beat-up, lived-in world of Star Wars. But it makes for a interesting dichotomy of things, I think. And that brings an end to this little 2-week odyssey. Interesting that I would want to start off by working on this tiny Razor Crest and then finish up by making the Mando. Interesting way to pad it out to 2 weeks, I think. But my alternative was to put a video up on Wednesday and then, you know, what, another one on Friday? Who wants two of me in 1 week? Trust me, I don't think you do. So those were our very interesting projects for this week. Now I know I have seen Randy's plans for the for his elaborate lighting for the stun gun, and believe me, I'm all there. I'm all for it. I wanted to get something out quick and easy and cheap, and that's how I work. I work with what's in hand. People often say, "Well, why don't you go out and get a mink-lined Arduino board for this, or why don't you go out and do get a $100 LED package?" It's like, because I'm trying to work with what I have, and most of the time I suck at planning. So I look around and see what I have that I can jam into a model and make it work, because I have a feeling that there are more people out there that are interested in putting a 9-volt battery in a single light bulb in a stun gun than they are lining up a huge elaborate deal. Nothing against Randy, I love what he does, but you know, that's for the 5%ers. That's the people who are really going to get that much of a kick out of doing something. Now I will play with, you know, the sounds and stuff like that, because again, it's something that I have on board. And I can go ahead and, now I've only got one of these left, so I got to be very picky with it, but I can hear that fine. I don't need it to be amplified like a loudspeaker, so this is my favorite one still.
Human decision required.
It's like the computer saying, throwing its hands up in the air. It's like the opposite of Hal. The computer is the opposite of Hal, whereas Hal was happy to make all those life or death decisions for the crew. The computer on main mission, hey buddy, it's on you. You go. You do you, John. I'm out of here. So, but yeah, it was fun to have one of these finally after all these years in a lightweight, non-resin, actual scale, authorized product. It's one of those things that during the dark days of the 70s, when all you had were Trek reruns, and all of a sudden you had this new show on, and you had some neat props, and it's like, yes, look, it doesn't light up, it doesn't move, but like I said, this is the first one. I'll probably make one as soon as, you know, it shakes out who's going to be producing screens for it. I'll be happy to put a screen in this and rebuild it. But yeah, it's like this. I remember when 1999 was first on, and it's like, that's kind of neat. That's kind of a neat little prop there that got that. It's a garage door opener. It's a TV. It's a communicator. It's only got 9 numbers though. It doesn't have a 0. Even back then, I was going, what the heck? What's going on with that? But and that, between that and the hand stapler that they used as a weapon. I mean, you could use a hand stapler as a weapon, but you had to beat somebody over the head with it. But I like this. It's got the nice little stun/kill switch on it. It's got the button. It does everything I want a stun gun to do, except fit on my stylish beige belt and my bell-bottom pants. I'm rambling now because it's been one of those weeks. So until next week, when we'll be building something, I don't know exactly what. Y'all be good to each other, be safe, be smart, build a model. Be back next time. Be around. Oh, and if I don't see you by next Thursday, it will have been Thanksgiving. So I hope you had a happy Thanksgiving. I hope you enjoyed some time with your friends and your family. Don't get into too many fights around a turkey. Life's too short to fight around a turkey. Save your fighting for Christmas when it really matters. We'll talk to you next time.
This is the way.